Welcome to step 2 of leaving the patriarchy, the trauma bond. Hi everyone. How are you doing today? This video has been a long time coming. It's a big topic. I'm not sure if I can cover it in one piece, but I will give it my very, very best effort. In step 1, we talked about the mental awareness, the obsessing over information and gathering all the wisdom that you can and devouring everything that you can lay your hands on to find meaning to what you're already thinking and what you're already feeling, but you just need a little bit of reassurance. You need some more in-depth information, and you have this desire and you crave more. Well, today we get more into the nitty-gritty. And as always, I speak in two different terms. One is as a trauma survivor, because that is what I am, from abuse and the patriarchy and a very, very misogynistic family, which essentially is abuse and patriarchy. And also in the terms of abuse. So when I speak of patriarchy, I always come back to these two because that's essentially is what it is. Patriarchy is abusive, and those who are suffering under it are trauma survivors. And this can range widely from suffering mildly to deeply, deeply suffering. And it doesn't matter where you fall. If you're here and you want to learn more, you want to heal. You want to move past it. And that's what matters. So just, let's get into this. I'm going to be laughing a lot because I'm going to be having so many confusing thoughts because the wealth, the vast information is just, I've put 8 years of my life into my website working on this. So to condense it is hard. Here's how healing generally works. First, we sort of it's like a top-down approach, although the rebuilding is a bottom-up approach. So first comes the mental awareness. You can't do anything, you can't process anything, you can't move forward, you can't fix situations if there's no mental awareness, if there's no critical thinking of what's going on and discerning judgment of what you need to do and understanding. Understanding is a big, big part of healing because it involves your perspective. And your perspective is a massive part of shifting your dynamics with you, yourself, and whatever it is that you are trying to undo or rebuild or create anew. So there's a lot of mental stuff, which is what I discussed in the first step. The second step, we go more deeper and downer. So we're now getting into the emotional attachments, the primal instincts, the neurological wiring, stuff that has been set in stone, feels stuck, feels overwhelming, stuff that impacts our thinking brain. We're talking about our limbic brain, our emotional brain, and our primal brain. And although the patriarchy and all of the institutions that like to teach, whether it's education, healthcare, otherwise, thinking that our cognitive brain controls the rest, it's actually the reverse. Our cognitive prefrontal cortex, conscious part of our lives, is like 5 to 10% of who we are. It's our unconscious patterning and our belief systems and the way our nervous system is wired that actually creates most of our lives. And isn't it funny that the patriarchy claims a former and abuses us through the latter? And I guess you could say that's a massive cognitive dissonance on their part. Or maybe they are aware and they're just doing it anyways out of evilness. I don't know. But the impact is the same. Matriarchy is about bottom up. So we work from the environment first, and then the body and the nervous system, primal brain, emotional brain, cognitive brain. But healing is kind of top down because we have to kind of work with what we have. And so often our bodies, our emotions, our connections to our environment, our patterns, all the different bonds that we have are subconscious, and we don't have access to it, whether because we've suppressed it because of a trauma, or because we just simply are not aware of it, or because we've normalized it, because the patriarchy has conditioned us to believe that what was false is really true, even though it feels off. So we need to kind of go in where we can go in, which is through the understanding, through the mind, through the cognitive faculties. And then from there, we open up neural pathways, and we open up the energy, and we can start to go deeper and deeper. So with step 1, we've opened up those pathways. Step 2, we're now going to start to face the nitty-gritty, the stuff that is uncomfortable. And this is probably the hardest step of all. And it's one that's going to take so much trial and error and so much redoing and undoing and processing, but it's also, I think, one of the most liberating. This is the place where you find your freedom, because you take the trauma bond that you have to the patriarchy and you unlink it, and instead, in its place, you're now putting secure bonds of matriarchy into it. And when that happens, it's like a huge weight gets lifted off your shoulders. And while you may still have to deal with the step 3, which is the physical reality of it in the actual actions and behaviors, the internalness, the inside of you has more space. And your energy is now being used to promote and provide the stuff that you want instead of surviving the stuff that you don't in the patriarchy. So that's what we want to attempt to do with the trauma bond. What is a trauma bond, in case those of you are unsure? Basically, you are bonded to something traumatic, and it's not by choice. This happens to us. It's forced upon us when we are in places that, or experiences, or with people that we just simply cannot remove ourselves from. A great example of this is a child who's been raised by an abusive parent. The source of their suffering is also the same source that provides them the very things they need to survive: shelter, food, love, care in whatever form it comes in. So the child forms a trauma bond to their parents. It's also called a disorganized attachment. This happens a lot in domestic abusive relationships as well. While the abuser takes away your power bit by bit, you are now being forced to bond to them more and more for survival against your will. And it can be done so coercively, so covertly, that you may not even be aware that it's happening until what happens is, like one day what happened to me. You wake up one day and you're just like, you hear something, you see something, and then it's just like, wow, well, maybe that's what it really is. That's a trauma bond. And the awareness, the understanding is the first step, because we can't deal with the nitty gritty until we're like, oh yeah. So you kind of have to work. That's why head to emotions, to body, to world, in order to heal. Well, the trauma bond to the patriarchy is the same way. There is no way anybody on this earth, male, female, animal, land, can exist without the patriarchy, because it is so insidious and so, like, it has infiltrated everything, that we are so impacted by it. So yes, we have a huge trauma bond to patriarchy, because we are forced to live in conditions while they pull our power from us, and we are now bonding more and more to it to survive. An example of, you need money to live, and now you need to work to live, and we're going to make the conditions of work this and this and this and this in order to give you money so that you can now survive under me, because I demand everything society needs is money. That's one. There are so many instances, but that's a big one. So the idea of removing the bonds to the patriarchy is to find ways that you don't have to rely on it anymore. And how do we do that? Well, a lot of people think that it's an action. And for some people, it is just as simple as that. You have the internal resources and external resources to just simply say, I'm going to quit, and I'm going to get a farm, and I'm going to homestead and provide myself as much as the amenities as possible. And if you can do that, that's a great privilege. That means you already have some money at your back. You already have some security in case challenges occur, and you already have some knowledge and some information on homesteading, from making your own food, such and such. But for many, you can't do it in a flip of a switch like that. There's too much of you involved with the bond. So we have to do it slowly and in pieces. And I call them pockets. So the first thing we have to do is deal with the imprint that the trauma bond has put upon us as women in the patriarchy. And you need to find out what these imprints are. And usually they are of an emotional level. Usually there are some physical, like body reactions to it. And usually there are some conditioning, values, belief sets, ruminations, insecurities that come with it. So you need to take out a journal or just sit with yourself and start to listen to all that stuff, that chatter that has been forced to be quiet, and you have to let it talk. And if you're unsure how to do this in depth, I highly encourage you to visit my website, healingfromharm.com, because I blog about this stuff all the time. I have courses on working with this. I've got worksheets. I even have a membership program that I'm just starting up, where I'm going to provide more audio like this on those pockets, those bits and pieces of imprints to work on. I'm going to be providing that there, because there's so much information that this video would be 3 days long. And I would need to create like outlines of like what I'm going to do. So that will all be, and some of it already is, at healing.com, healingfromharm.com. So please, please, please visit there. You can also visit on my first Church of Matriarchy, which I also am putting stuff on. on patriarchy.com at returning to her. So you can check that out. I'll have links below. Getting back to the trauma bond, finding where those imprints, it's like little pieces taking bites out of you. Okay, and it's ripping part of you apart, and it's also molding you in ways that you don't want to be, and it's creating tension and illness and just inside of you. Those are the imprints. All those have voices. They all have stuff they want to tell you. And when you are tapping into them, they will tell you, and you can work through it, and you can start to shift those imprints. And an example would be tightness, like rigidity. Feeling just stress and tightness. That is your body instinctively reacting to something that it's trying to protect you from. Now, protection could be somebody in your space that, let's say, you don't like, at like a reunion dinner, and it's just, right? Like instantly you saw that, like that tense, just get me away from here. Or it could be like a past experience that you have now internalized and held, and the memory of it is like, and you might not even have a memory. We could go even further, and it could just be a straight reaction and a straight fear or terror or rage that comes with it, and you have no idea what it is, but you can feel it. That is an imprint. That is a trauma bond, and that can be dealt with and worked with. And when you do, that becomes, and it's not a switch. I'm not going to promise you quick fixes. Anybody that does is a con man. It is a process. But with every layer that you work with, like an onion with 1,000 layers, or 100, or 5, or 1,000,000, depending on who you are, with every layer becomes more open. And if you were to take a deep breath now and open just what naturally feels like you're able to do. Try not to force it. And then just see like what arises. Are things a little clearer? Do you speak a little slower? Do you feel yourself seated more groundly? Do you feel like you can breathe deeper? What is it? That is the sense of your internal power that innately wants to be there, but feels like it can't because you have to be protected against something. So we heal the trauma bonds in every little imprint and every layer so that natural innate power can return. And you might say, well, why didn't it stay there in the first place? Why was it not powerful enough to fight whatever happened that I needed to protect myself? And that is because, say hi to my kitty. And that is because you kind of have to think of it like a balance scale. And if the trauma bond, if all the need protection, it gets high enough, the power just, it gets hidden. It just gets buried and buried. So we need to now just restore it. And our presence, our energy, our determination and our will to work with it restores the balance. And this is the power of those that do energy work. If you've ever wondered what it is, basically it's taking this and doing this. Because what we observe, what we give our presence to, our awareness to, grows. Right? The power of attachment, power of attention. Oh, what's that book? Power of Attraction that's out there. There is definitely stuff to that. So we now, our power has more energetic frequency, more vibration, more strength than what we don't give our attention to. And you may think, well, I give my attention to the protection all the time. It's just there. It's just there. It's just there. And yes, it's there. And yes, you know that it's there. But are you now sitting with it, loving it, embracing it, and saying, okay, let's actually work with this? Because that kind of energy, that kind of attention is different. And I don't say this with judgment, because Goddess knows I did this for most of my life. And it takes unbelievable courage to something that you don't want to feel, to turn towards it and say, now I'm going to feel it. Like, that is incredible courage, an incredible strength. And you know what helped me with that? Two things helped me with that. One was I was in such pain that it was either to face it or die from it. That's how bad it got. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to surrender. I don't care if I die from this. I can't anymore. I just can't. And surrendering to it allowed that pressure to release and allow me pocket by pocket by pocket work with those imprints. And the other thing that helped me was the power of nature. Reading books on woman's innate power, getting out into Mother Nature and observing and learning how the wild animals act in their raw innateness. Watching my cats is a big one, because have you ever seen a cat? I mean, you know, well, those that aren't traumatized, have you ever seen a cat like, I'm going to put on a role for you? It doesn't happen. They just act how they want to act. So I learned from that, and I took all the inspirational knowledge, the inspiration stuff, the mind stuff. I took it in, and I took it in, and I took it in, and I swallowed it whole, and I fed myself these little nourishments of what the matriarchy really is, and the power of Mother Nature. And because I am a woman in Mother Nature, created by her, and I have her same abilities to create life in my DNA, whether I choose to or not, whether my reproductive system is working optimally or not, in my DNA, I can now use that power and take it and be present and embrace and face the wounds, the trauma bonds, the imprints. And that power started to shift the scales. So you see how it all kind of works? And so I went from, and I'm still a work in progress, I still have deep, deep wounds from my abuse and my trauma that still shake me to my core. But I went from feeling like I needed to surrender to my pain, whether I died or not, to I can see another layer coming, and I'm going to be present for the ride, have the ability to hold myself through the ride, and know that on the other side is that and that's what removing the trauma bonds is. Going from all the survival reactions to, I see. I see what you are presenting, patriarchy. I'm going to choose how I respond to this. And if it is something that it is not my liking, I'm going to make different choices in how I'm going to change this. And that part I'll explain more in step 3, because we have to do pockets of change too. We can't just simply go live on a farm somewhere unless you're willing to make a lot of sacrifices. Or I should say, not willing, but ready to make those sacrifices. So I'll speak of that a little bit more. But just being able to have that presence, have that groundedness of that 1,000-year-old oak tree running through you from Mother Nature, the power of her womb to ours, and look patriarchy dead in the face and say, yeah, I know what you're doing. I see what's happening. I have worked with all my disgust, all my rage, all my sadness, all my fear, and now I can promptly deal with you. The trauma bonds, the healing of the trauma bonds is working with all the emotional grit, all that stuff. It has to happen. Has to. It is the most uncomfortable ride you will go through and the most liberating ride you will go through. I'm not sure if I can express how much space, wholeness, peace, safety, freedom that you get in your body, in your mind, in your life when you finally heal those wounds. If you know what I'm talking about, if you've been through this or going through this, maybe you can share your story in the comments. If you're unsure, maybe you can ask some questions. We can start a conversation, because this is such a tricky little puzzle, but it's not undoable. The trauma bonds. If you want to read more about the trauma bonds, go read about it in regards to abuse concepts. And then if you want to read about healing them, go read about attachment therapy tools in the trauma world. And then when you feel like you're just like you need some inspiration, some grounding, go read and watch matriarchal stuff, Mother Nature's stuff, energy stuff. Grab bits and pieces from all 3, and those are your roots to your 1,000-year-old oak tree that's going to grow inside of you. That's how you work with the trauma bond. You've got the 3 resources, the trauma bond resources, the attachment wound therapy resources, and the inspirational, strength-giving, matriarchal, Mother Nature, woman power resources. And you will find stability to work through the imprints. I'm going to end it here. If I think of more, I will probably create more videos and add them to my website or to my programs. So I will put the links to everything down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know if it resonates with you, if you have any questions, where you can learn more, share your stories. And also I'm going to put my PayPal link if you want to support me and my work. I will tell you why. I can't go into detail here yet because of the circumstances. But in my membership program, behind the scenes, I explain why I ask for money. I am dealing with something of my own. So, yeah. Till next time, I have a matriarchal sermon coming up. I have a program on shame, undoing shame coming up. I have the membership program coming up. I have some more stuff on my first Church of Matriarchy coming up, so stay tuned, and I will see you all next time. Have a great day.